The first sign something was wrong was that my key went into the lock and would not turn. I tried it again. Same brass key I had carried for 34 years. Same front door. Different lock. I stood on my porch holding a small bunch of white lilies I had not left at the cemetery because Linda's vase was already full. Then I noticed the locksmith van parked beside my son's truck. Evan came around the side of the house before I could knock. Dad. He said it the way people say your name when they already know you are going to be angry. What happened to my lock? He looked at the key in my hand. I was going to call you. That isn't an answer. The front door opened behind him. A man in a dark work shirt stepped outside carrying a plastic case of drill bits. I recognized him. Ray Morales had wrecked our back door 12 years earlier after Linda lost her purse at a hospital fundraiser and became convinced somebody would use the address on her driver's license to rob us. Nobody did. Ray looked older now. So did I. Mr. Keller, he said. Ray. His eyes moved from me to Evan. That bothered me. What are you doing here? Evan answered for him. I had the locks changed. I gathered that. It needed to happen. I looked at my son. I was 72 years old, retired from 38 years as a commercial building inspector, and had lived in that brick colonial in Midlothian, Virginia, since Evan was 12. The mortgage had been gone 9 years. My wife had been dead 14 months. Nothing about that made me a guest on my own porch. Why? Evan rubbed the back of his neck. Can we go inside? I'd love to. He closed his eyes. Dad. Ray looked as if he wanted to become invisible. Then Evan's phone rang. He checked the screen. I need to take this. Of course you do. He walked toward the driveway. Ray remained beside me. I held up the key. Did he tell you I still live here? Ray looked toward Evan, then back at me. He said ownership had changed. My hand lowered. What ownership? The property. What did he show you? Ray hesitated. Locksmiths do not generally improve their businesses by entering family arguments. I saw documentation. What documentation? Recorded property paperwork. That is not an answer. He gave me a small look that suggested I had not changed much in 12 years. Then he stepped closer. His voice dropped. Check the deed. I stared at him. What? Check the deed. That was all he said. Evan started walking back toward us. Ray picked up his tool case. I'm finished with the exterior doors. Evan nodded. Thanks. Ray looked at me once more. Then he got into his van. I watched him drive away. Evan held out a new key. I did not take it. What deed? He exhaled. Can we please go inside? What deed, Evan? The house paperwork. That clears up almost nothing. He looked toward the street. My neighbors, Bill and Donna Ramsey, were unloading groceries 2 houses down. Evan lowered his voice. Dad, I'm not doing this on the porch. I finally took the key. It opened my door. That should not have felt like a concession. It did. Inside, the house smelled faintly of lemon cleaner. Linda used to buy a brand that smelled like that. I had switched to something cheaper after she died, which meant somebody had cleaned while I was gone. I noticed 2 cardboard boxes beside the staircase. Empty. Flattened. A roll of packing tape sat on the dining room table. I looked at Evan. What are the boxes for? They're not important. Then you won't mind telling me. He took off his jacket. I've been trying to talk to you for months about this house. No, you've been telling me the yard is too much. It is. I pay Miguel to mow it. The stairs. I can climb stairs. The bathrooms need work. I know where Home Depot is. His jaw tightened. This is what I mean. What do you mean? Everything turns into an argument. I came home from your mother's grave and couldn't unlock my front door. His face changed at that. He knew where I had been. In fact, he had texted me that morning. You going to see Mom today? I answered yes. At the time, I thought he was remembering the date, the 14th month since Linda died, not an anniversary anybody else would mark. I went to the cemetery on the 2nd Saturday of every month because the first year had taught me grief does not become more reasonable simply because the calendar expects it to. Evan knew the routine. Now I wondered whether that message had been sentimental at all. You waited until I was at the cemetery. No. That is when you changed the locks. Yes. You knew I'd be gone. He looked away. I needed a few uninterrupted hours. For what? To get things started. I pointed toward the boxes. What things? He was silent. Then he said, There's an appraisal Monday. I almost laughed. Of what? The house. Why? Dad. Why is somebody appraising my house? Evan pulled out a dining chair and sat. That irritated me more than if he had remained standing. It made him look like the person conducting the meeting. Because Laura and I need to know what it's worth. My daughter. Laura was 49, lived 20 minutes away in Bon Air, and had not said one word to me about appraising anything. What does Laura have to do with this? She knows. Knows what? That the deed is in our names. I stared at him. The deed is not in your names. It is now. For a few seconds, neither of us spoke. Then I said, "Explain that sentence." Evan leaned forward. "You signed the release." "What release?" "The life estate release." That phrase meant something. Not enough yet. Years earlier, Linda and I had done estate planning after a neighbor spent nearly a year sorting out his mother's property through probate. Our attorney prepared a deed that let Linda and me keep full use of the house during our lives while arranging for the property to pass to Evan and Laura afterward. I remembered that much. Linda called it the "nobody has to fight with the courthouse" deed. I called it 23 pages of explanation for one piece of paper, but I also remembered the important part. The house remained ours while either one of us was alive. After Linda died, my right did not disappear. At least, that was what I believed. I never released anything. Evan's expression softened. That made me angrier. "Dad, you signed it." "When?" "Last month." "No." "Yes." "Where?" "Right here." He pointed toward the kitchen. I looked past him. A memory moved somewhere at the edge of my mind. Evan at the kitchen table, a folder, a woman with a notary stamp, paperwork related to Linda's estate, maybe insurance, maybe both. I could not place the order. "What did you tell me I was signing?" His face tightened. "I told you we were cleaning up the property documents. That is not the same as surrendering my right to live here. Nobody is throwing you out." I looked at the changed lock. Evan followed my eyes. "That isn't what this is." "Then what is it?" "We're trying to get ahead of things." "What things?" He rubbed both hands over his face. "You cannot stay in this house forever just because Mom died here." The sentence hit harder than he intended. I knew because he immediately looked sorry. Linda had not died in the house. Hospice had helped us keep her home until the final 3 days, when breathing became too difficult and she asked to go back to the hospital. But the house still carried the last year of her illness. The recliner we bought when she could no longer lie flat. The downstairs bathroom where I installed grab bars. The bedroom window where she kept a pot of rosemary because hospital rooms smelled like nothing. I had not removed all of it. That did not mean I was waiting to die. That is not your decision. I know. Do you? Yes. Then why is there an appraisal? He stood again. Because you told me you were open to downsizing. I said I might look at condos someday. You said this place was too much. I said the gutters were too much. That's exactly what I'm talking about. No, Evan, that is exactly what I'm talking about. You keep taking half a sentence and turning it into permission. He looked toward the stairs. I'm not asking you to move tomorrow. Good. But Laura and I are the owners now. There it was again. Owners, not future owners, not beneficiaries. Owners. I said, "Show me." "What?" "The deed." "I don't have it with me." "Then pull it up." "Dad, you changed the locks based on a document you cannot show me." "It's recorded," Ray's words returned. "Check the deed." I picked up my keys. "Where are you going?" "My office." "You're already home." "My office is upstairs." He did not follow. That was the first intelligent decision either of us made. I kept an old metal file box in the closet beside my desk. Taxes, insurance, the mortgage satisfaction, Linda's death certificate, our estate documents. I found the deed in the third folder, recorded 7 years earlier. George Keller and Linda Keller as grantors. Our names again in the section reserving a life estate. Evan Keller and Laura Keller as remainder beneficiaries. I read every line. I had spent most of my career reading plans people insisted were basically the same as the approved set. Words mattered, lines mattered. What a document actually said mattered. The deed said Linda and I retained possession, use, income, and enjoyment of the property during our lifetimes. After the death of the surviving life tenant, the remainder passed to Evan and Laura. Linda was gone. I was not. I took the deed downstairs. Evan had made coffee for himself. I put the document in front of him. "Read the reserved interest paragraph." "I know what it says." "Then explain how you own my house today." He looked at me. "Because you released the life estate." "Show me the release." "It's recorded." "So you keep saying." He became impatient. "You can look it up." I did. Chesterfield County's online records were not designed by anyone who wanted the public to enjoy property research, but I had used worse systems. My name produced 21 results: old deeds, refinancing documents, the release of the mortgage. Then I saw an instrument recorded 9 days earlier. Grantor, George A. Keller. Grantees, Evan R. Keller and Laura K. Hayes. Instrument type, quitclaim deed. I opened the scanned image. The first page contained the legal description of my property. The second page contained a paragraph I read twice. I was releasing all remaining right, title, and interest I held in the property, including the life estate reserved under the earlier deed. Consideration, gift. At the bottom was my signature, George A. Keller. I knew my own handwriting. The G leaned too far forward. The second L in Keller always collapsed into the first. It was mine. Below it was a notary acknowledgement dated 5 weeks earlier. I remembered the day now. Evan had come over after lunch with a brown accordion folder. He said there were documents connected to cleaning up Linda's estate and updating the house records. A mobile notary arrived around 3. I signed where the yellow tabs told me to sign. I had read the first few pages. Then Evan's phone kept ringing. The notary was waiting. I trusted my son. So I stopped reading. That was my mistake. Not age, not confusion. Trust combined with laziness. An expensive combination at any age. I scrolled farther down. The tax mailing address for the new owners was not Laura's house. It was not Evan's house either. It was the office address of Keller Renovation Group, my son's contracting company. I looked toward the kitchen. Evan was standing in the doorway. He had been watching me read. "What is your company doing on my deed?" His face changed, only slightly. Enough. And for the first time that afternoon, I stopped wondering whether Evan had misunderstood the paperwork. I started wondering what he had needed my house for before I ever left for the cemetery. I did not ask the question immediately. That was unusual for me. For 38 years, people had handed me explanations about cracked foundations, missing fire stops, altered load-bearing walls, and electrical work that somehow became existing conditions the moment an inspector noticed them. The first explanation was rarely the useful one, so I watched Evan. He stayed in the kitchen doorway with one hand in his pocket. "What is Keller Renovation Group doing on my deed? It isn't on your deed. The tax mailing address is your office. That's not ownership. I know what a mailing address is," he exhaled. "I had the notices sent there because I'm handling the paperwork." "What paperwork?" "Property tax, recording, the appraisal, eventually whatever happens next." "Whatever happens next." Dad. That phrase seems to be doing a lot of work today. He walked back into the kitchen. I followed. The lilies from the cemetery were still on the entry table. One had already dropped a little yellow pollen onto Linda's wooden bowl. She hated lilies in the house because of that pollen. I almost smiled. Then Evan said, "The company address is convenient, that's all. Is your company borrowing against this house?" His head came up. "No." The answer was quick. I watched him. "Selling it to your company?" "No." "Using it as collateral?" "No." "Planning renovations before a sale?" He rubbed his forehead. "You're doing that thing." "What thing?" "Where every answer becomes 3 more questions. Usually because the first answer leaves 3 holes." He walked to the coffee maker. "Laura and I have talked about what happens with the house." "With each other?" "Yes." "Not with me." "We have talked with you. You've talked at me about downsizing. Because you keep saying this place is too much." I looked toward the dining room. The house was almost 2,800 square feet, 4 bedrooms, 3 bathrooms if you counted the downstairs half bath. Linda always called the postage stamp. It had made sense when Evan and Laura were teenagers. It had made sense when grandchildren slept over. It had even made sense during Linda's illness because the first floor gave us enough room for a hospital bed without turning our bedroom into a clinic. Now most of the upstairs stayed quiet. That did not make the house an emergency. Too much house is not the same as not my house. I didn't say it wasn't yours. You told me you and Laura are the owners. Legally. I stared at him. "Do you hear yourself?" His face tightened. "I mean the title, and I mean the front door." He looked away. That was the first moment I saw something other than certainty. Embarrassment, maybe. "I should not have changed the locks without telling you." "No. I was going to give you a key." "That is not the comforting sentence you think it is." "I know. Why change them at all?" He hesitated. The back lock has been sticking. It has been sticking for 3 years. I wanted one key for everything before people start coming through. There it was. People. He knew he had said too much. What people? The appraiser. One person. Maybe a realtor later. Whose realtor? Nobody's yet. You already spoke to one. His silence answered. Who? Angela Foster. I knew the name. She had sold a house 3 doors down the previous year. Did Angela tell you I want to sell? No. Then why is she involved? She gave me a general market estimate. For my house. For the neighborhood. I looked at him. He sighed. For the house. When? Last week. Did she come inside? No. Good. That was a small mercy. Evan picked up his coffee. I'm not listing anything without talking to you. You seem to prefer talking after doing. His face hardened. I'm trying to make this easier. For whom? He had no answer, I believed. Then I noticed something else. There was a roll of blue painter's tape on the counter. I had not put it there. Why is that here? What? The tape. Evan looked at it. For the appraisal. I waited. He gave up. I marked a few things that need repair. You inspected my house? I walked through it. When? This morning? I almost laughed. While I was at the cemetery. Yes. The word sat there. No apology around it. No explanation. Just yes. I looked toward the hallway. Suddenly I pictured Evan moving through the rooms while I stood at Linda's grave, opening closets, looking at drywall, putting tape beside cracks, deciding what needed fixing before strangers saw the place. My son knew houses, not the way I did. Different side of the same business. I inspected commercial projects for the county. Evan built and renovated them. For years, that had been one of the things connecting us. When he started Keller Renovation Group at 31, I helped him understand permits, inspection sequences, and which shortcuts would cost him twice as much later. I never gave him special treatment. He complained about that. Linda said he complained because he was proud enough to want help, but too proud to want favors. That sounded like both Keller men. What did you mark? Loose handrail upstairs, water staining near the guest room window, caulk around the hall tub. All things I know about. Then why haven't you fixed them? Because none of them is urgent. To you, I looked at him. Are you trying to prove the house is too much for me? No. The answer came slower this time. What are you trying to prove? That waiting another year won't make any of this easier. For the house? For you. That stopped me. Evan's expression softened. You're alone here. I'm widowed. That's not the same thing. You eat dinner standing over the sink half the week. That is efficient. You go to the cemetery every month. I felt something close inside me. Be careful. I'm not criticizing that. Then don't use your mother's grave as evidence. I'm not. You just did. He set the coffee down. This is impossible. No, it's uncomfortable. There is no version of this conversation where you admit you're stuck. Maybe because I don't believe I am. He shook his head, then picked up his jacket. I'm going. Cancel the appraisal. He stopped. Dad, cancel it. It doesn't hurt anything to know the value. It hurts when I didn't authorize it. You don't own the property anymore. I looked at him. That sentence was worse the second time. Get out. His face changed. Dad, not permanently. Don't be dramatic. I pointed toward the door. But right now, get out of my house. He took his coat. At the entry table, he saw the lilies. His shoulders dropped. I didn't plan this because you were visiting Mom. You asked me this morning if I was going. I always remember the second Saturday. Do you? Yes. Then you knew exactly how long I would be gone. He did not answer. That answer was enough. After he left, I stood in the kitchen and listened to his truck back out of the driveway. The new deadbolt clicked differently when I locked it. Too clean, too tight. Someone else's hardware in my door. I spent the next hour putting blue tape back onto the roll. There were 7 pieces, handrail, window stain, tub caulk, a hairline crack over the downstairs powder room door that had existed since 2009, a chipped tile behind the washing machine, peeling paint on one exterior window stool, and a small patch of discoloration in the basement storage room where a water heater had leaked 6 years earlier. Evan had marked old problems as if he were preparing a punch list. That was what contractors called the final list before a job was considered complete. It annoyed me enough that I almost called him again. Instead, I called Laura. She answered on the third ring. "Hey, Dad, did you know Evan changed my locks?" Silence. "What?" That was not the reaction of somebody who had approved it. "He changed them this morning." "Why?" "I was hoping you could tell me." "I can't." "He said you knew." "Knew what?" "That you two own the house now." Another silence, longer. "Dad, what are you talking about?" I sat down. "The deed." "Oh." The word came differently. "So you know about that." "I know he said you signed something." "What did he say I signed?" "An update to the estate paperwork." "Did he say I released my life estate?" Laura said nothing. "Laura?" "No." I closed my eyes. "What did he tell you?" "That after Mom died, the old deed needed to be cleaned up." "It did not." "I don't know anything about deeds." "I know. He said title would be simpler if the house was already in our names. It was already arranged to pass to you after I died. I know that now." "Now?" she sighed. "Dad, I didn't read the old paperwork. Neither had Evan needed her signature to receive my interest. That part I understood. A grantee does not usually sign the deed that gives them property, which meant Laura could have become an owner without doing anything at all. Did you know about the appraisal Monday?" "What appraisal?" There was the contradiction. I sat straighter. "Evan told me you and he needed to know what the house is worth." "I haven't talked to an appraiser." "Angela Foster?" "The realtor?" "Yes." "No." "Prairie Appraisal Company?" "No." "Did you ask Evan to sell the house?" "Absolutely not." "Did you talk with him about me moving?" Laura hesitated. "That's different." "How?" "Dad?" I waited. "We have talked about whether you're happy there." "That is not an answer." "Yes, we've talked about you moving eventually." "Eventually?" "Yes." "Not next week." "No." "Not because you own the house." "No." She sounded irritated now, mostly at Evan. "What exactly has he done?" I told her. "Locks, boxes, tape, realtor, appraisal, company address on the deed." Laura became quiet. Then she said, "He told me the company address was temporary because his office handles his paperwork. That part may actually be true." "Why would his office handle my property?" "Good question," she sighed. "I need to call him." "Don't." "Why not?" "Because I want to know what the appraisal is actually for before he has another chance to explain it." Laura was silent, then said, "That sounds like one of your inspections." "Probably. You always got weirdly calm when somebody lied to you." "I'm not calm. You sound calm." "That's different." She almost laughed. The sound helped. For a moment she was my daughter again, not a name on a deed that had removed me from my own house. Then she said, "Dad, I really thought you knew what you were signing." "I should have." "I mean that gently. It still counts." "I'm sorry." "So am I." After we hung up, I called Angela Foster. I did not accuse her of anything. I asked whether she had prepared a listing agreement for my address. "No." "Did Evan Keller ask you for a market analysis?" "Yes." "What did he say it was for?" She hesitated. "He said the family was considering options after your wife passed." "That sounds like Evan." "I told him I would need to speak with you before listing anything." "Good." "He said he understood." "Did he mention an appraisal?" "No." That mattered. A realtor's market analysis was not the appraisal scheduled Monday. Different purpose, different person. At 4:20, my phone rang, a number I did not recognize. "Mr. Keller?" "Yes." "This is Megan calling from Commonwealth Valuation Services. I'm confirming access for Monday morning." I looked at the new key on the counter. "What kind of appraisal are you doing?" "A residential property appraisal." "For sale?" There was a small pause. "I'm not sure I understand." "Who ordered it?" Another pause. "I can tell you the client is Piedmont Commercial Credit." I stopped. Not Evan, not Laura, not a realtor, a lender. I looked toward the printed quitclaim deed. "What is Piedmont Commercial Credit appraising my house for?" "I'm sorry, sir. I can't discuss the client's lending file." "You can cancel access." "Are you the property owner?" That question would have been simple yesterday. Now it wasn't. I looked at my signature releasing the life estate. Not according to the document my son had me sign. The woman became very quiet. I thanked her and ended the call. Then I went back to the county records. This time I did not search only my name. I searched Evans. and I searched Keller Renovation Group. The first result that mattered had been recorded 3 days after my quitclaim deed, not against my house, against Evan's company, a financing statement tied to Piedmont Commercial Credit. That did not tell me the amount. It did tell me the appraisal was not about downsizing, not grief, not gutters. My son had moved my property into his and Laura's names and then sent a commercial lender to determine what it was worth. Whatever Evan had meant when he said his company had nothing to do with my deed, he had left out the one fact that mattered most. His lender disagreed. I printed the financing statement and put it beside the quitclaim deed. Then I did something I had spent most of my career telling younger inspectors to do when a contractor's story changed halfway through a project. I stopped assuming I knew what the violation was. A bad-looking fact is not the same thing as a complete explanation. Piedmont Commercial Credit might have financed one of Evan's trucks. The company address on my deed might have been convenience. The appraisal might have been preliminary. Even the quitclaim deed, ugly as it looked, had my real signature on it. I had given Evan one advantage I could not blame on anybody else. I signed without reading. That mattered. At 6:15, Laura called. "You told me not to call him." "Yes, I didn't." "Good." "He called me." I sat straighter. "What did he say?" "That you're upset and misunderstanding what he's trying to do." "That sounds efficient." "Dad, what did he tell you about Piedmont Commercial Credit?" Silence. Then, "Who?" I believed her. "The company ordering Monday's appraisal." "An appraisal for what?" "That is what I'm trying to learn." Laura became quiet. Then she said, "Evan asked me about signing something last week." "What?" "I don't know." "You didn't ask?" "I did." She sounded irritated now. "He said it was related to the house paperwork and that he would explain after the appraisal." "What kind of paper?" "Something a lender needed." I leaned back. "Did he send it to you?" "No. He asked whether I'd be around Monday afternoon." "After the appraiser?" "Yes." "Did you agree?" I said maybe. "Don't sign anything." I wasn't planning to. "Good," she sighed. "Dad, what is going on with his company?" "I don't know." That was the truth. Keller Renovation Group had been operating for 17 years. Evan started with kitchen and bath renovations, then moved into larger commercial build-outs. Restaurants, medical offices, small retail spaces. Nothing glamorous. He had 12 employees last I knew, plus subcontractors depending on the job. The company survived the recession, the pandemic, supply shortages, and one project manager who disappeared halfway through a hotel renovation with a company credit card and approximately $600 of enthusiasm for sports betting. Evan complained about cash flow the way every contractor I had ever known complained about cash flow. It did not mean the business was failing. "Has he ever asked you for money?" I asked. Laura laughed. "Evan? Yes. No. Borrowed? No. Talked about the company struggling? He said one job was killing him." "What job?" "The dental building in Henrico, I think. That was new." "When?" "A couple months ago." "What did he say?" "That the owner kept changing things and payments were behind." "Did he say how much?" "No." I wrote it down. Laura heard the pen. "You're taking notes." "Yes." "You really are Dad." I had doubts until now. She almost laughed, then became serious. "You think he used the house for his business?" "I think a commercial lender does not usually pay for a residential appraisal because it likes colonial architecture." "Can he do that?" "Not alone." "Why?" "You and he own it according to the recorded deed. So he needs me." "For any normal mortgage or deed of trust against the whole property, yes." That was one reason I did not think money had already been borrowed against the house. A title company would find Laura. A lender would require her signature. Unless the transaction was something very different from what I was assuming. "When is the appraisal?" 9 Monday, Laura said. "I'm coming over." "No." "Why?" "Because I don't need 2 angry Kellers creating a scene when an appraiser is trying to do her job. She shouldn't be appraising it. That isn't her fault. You canceled access." "Yes." "What happens now?" "I find out why Piedmont ordered it." "And then?" "I decide." Laura went quiet. "You know Evan is going to hate that." "That is not currently among my top 5 concerns." After we hung up, I went upstairs and pulled out everything connected to the estate plan. The original deed had been prepared by Evelyn Grant. the attorney Linda and I used for years. The quitclaim had not. At the top of the first page, in small print, was prepared by Mercer Closing Services, LLC, Richmond, Virginia. I had never heard of them. I searched the name. Ordinary title and settlement company. Real office. Real phone number. No sinister website. No skull behind the logo. I called even though it was after 6. Voicemail. I left my name, property address, and recording number. Then I found the notary block. Natalie P. Warren. That name I remembered. She was the woman who came to my kitchen. Mid-30s, dark hair, blue folder. She asked for my driver's license. She watched me sign. She did exactly what a notary was supposed to do. I had not been drugged. I had not been confused. Nobody forged me. That was important because anger was already trying to improve my story. The truth was less flattering. Evan mischaracterized what the paperwork was doing, and I trusted him enough not to verify it. I went downstairs and made scrambled eggs for dinner. Linda used to call that bachelor food even when she was still alive. I ate at the kitchen table. The new key lay beside my plate. At 8:40, my phone rang. Evan. I let it ring 4 times before answering. Hi. You canceled the appraisal. I canceled access. Same result. Probably. He sounded tired. Dad, please don't start calling people at Piedmont. That sentence gave me more than he intended. I haven't. He paused. Okay. Why would you assume I had? Because you know who ordered it. I said nothing. He continued. I can explain this. You've had several opportunities. I was trying not to dump business problems on you. There. Business problems. What kind? Another pause. Cash flow? How bad? It's complicated. Then simplify it. He exhaled. We're carrying receivables. How much? Dad. Evan. About 400,000. I stopped chewing even though I had finished dinner 10 minutes earlier. 400,000 owed to you? Across several jobs. Past due? Some. How much past due? A little over 200? That was serious. Not necessarily fatal. Construction companies sometimes look profitable on paper while dying in checking accounts. Payroll happens Friday whether a client pays Thursday or 3 months later. Why Piedmont? Working capital line. You already have one? Yes. How much? 150. And you need more? Yes. How much more? Another 200. I looked at the financing statement. That filing I found 3 days after my deed? Silence. You found the UCC? Yes. That's the existing line. Why was it filed after my quitclaim? It was renewed. Convenient timing. It's not connected. Then why is the same lender appraising my house? He said nothing. I waited. Finally, they asked for additional collateral. There it was. My working theory had been mostly right. How much equity are you offering them? I'm not offering them the whole house. That is not how collateral works. I know how collateral works. Apparently you know enough to schedule an appraisal before telling one of the people whose property you want pledged. It's not your property on title. I went quiet. Evan immediately regretted it. Dad, no, finish that. That came out wrong. It came out very clearly. You gave Laura and me the house. After my death. Originally, yes. Then you signed the release. Because you told me it was estate cleanup. I told you it changed the property paperwork. I laughed once. That is a defense? I didn't hide the document. You put yellow tabs on it. The notary told you what you were signing? No. She asked if you understood. She asked if the signature was voluntary. Evan became quiet. I remembered the exchange now. Natalie had asked, "Are you signing this of your own free will?" I said yes. She did not ask whether my son had described the legal effect accurately. That was not her job. Did Mercer Closing Services explain the deed to you? I asked. Yes. When? Before I brought it. Did they know I still lived here? Yes. Did they know you intended to use the property as collateral? Silence. That answer mattered. Evan. I told them we were consolidating family ownership. That is not what I asked. No? So no? No. I got up and walked toward the front window. His truck was not outside. I had half expected him to be calling from the driveway. What did you tell Piedmont? That Laura and I own the property free of the life estate. True on paper? Yes. And that both of you would pledge it? I said I expected Laura to agree. I closed my eyes. She does not even know what you're asking her to sign. I was going to explain Monday. After the appraisal. Yes. After you had already changed my locks. That was not for Piedmont. Then why? He hesitated. For the appraiser and the realtor. People coming through. Yes. You wanted control of access. I wanted to get things moving. Toward what? Another long silence. Then Evan said, selling this house solves several problems. There it was. Not just collateral. Sale. What problems? You get somewhere smaller. And? Laura and I received the proceeds. I could hear how carefully he was speaking now. And? I can pay off whatever part of the Piedmont line I use. I stared through the window at Linda's hydrangeas. The beds needed trimming. That was true. So was everything else he had said about maintenance. He had taken real facts and arranged them into a future that happened to rescue his business. How much of my house were you planning to use? That's not fair. It's arithmetic. The property is probably worth $650. $7 on a good day. Fine. You and Laura split the remainder interest equally. Yes. So you decided your future half was available now. I didn't decide anything final. You changed my locks. I already admitted that was wrong. You scheduled an appraisal. Yes. You spoke to a realtor. Yes. You arranged for Laura to sign lender documents. I asked if she was available. Evan. He exhaled sharply. Yes. I sat back down. What happens if your clients pay next month? Then I don't need as much. And if they don't, the line gets me through. What happens if the dental job loses money? Silence. What happens if another client delays payment? I have other work. That wasn't the question. He sounded angry now. What do you want from me? The truth before you spend an inheritance I haven't died enough to give you. Silence. Long enough that I regretted the sentence. Not because it was inaccurate, because Linda would have hated it. Evan finally said, I'm trying to save my company. There was no performance in his voice, just exhaustion. My employees have mortgages, kids. One guy's wife is in treatment. I've got subcontractors waiting on checks. If I lose the line, I start laying people off. That was the first thing he had said all day that made me understand why a decent man might start doing indecent things. It did not make them decent. How long have you known? Since February that it was getting tight. Before you brought me the deed. Yes. There it was. I had wanted to believe the quitclaim was ordinary estate cleanup that Evan later realized could help his company. It wasn't. The business problem came first. The deed came after. My first theory had been that my son saw an opportunity once the house was in his name. Now the sequence told me something worse. He had needed the house before he ever asked me to sign it. And that meant the transfer had not merely become convenient. Convenience may have been the reason it happened at all. I slept badly. Not because I thought Evan was coming back with another locksmith. Because I kept replaying the kitchen table 5 weeks earlier. Natalie Warren had set her notary bag beside Linda's fruit bowl. Evan had put yellow tabs beside 3 signature lines. I remembered him saying, this just gets the house paperwork lined up after Mom. I remembered asking, does Laura need to sign? He said, not for this part. Both statements were technically true. Neither told me I was giving up the one legal interest that kept the house mine for the rest of my life. At 8:11 the next morning, Mercer Closing Services returned my call. The woman's name was Rachel Dobbins. I gave her the recording number. She verified my identity, then pulled up the file. Yes, Mr. Keller, we prepared that deed. Who hired you? Your son contacted us. What did he ask you to prepare? A deed transferring your remaining interest to the current remainder owners. Did he say why? Our intake note says estate planning cleanup following spouse's death. I looked at the old life estate deed beside me. Did your company tell him that cleanup was necessary? I don't see that. That mattered. Did anyone from Mercer explain to me that I was surrendering the life estate? She checked. No attorney conferences noted. This was document preparation and recording based on instructions from the client. Which client? Evan Keller is listed as the ordering contact, not me. Did you send me a draft? The draft was emailed to Mr. Keller. Only him? Yes. Anything about why the life estate was being removed? More clicking. Then Rachel said, there is a note from your son asking whether removing the reserved life estate would make the title easier to finance or sell later. My hand tightened around the phone. So he asked about financing before I signed. Yes. That did not prove he had already spoken to Piedmont, but it narrowed the space for innocent misunderstanding. Send me whatever part of the file I'm entitled to receive. I can do that. Before we hung up, she said, the notary reported no issue with your willingness or capacity to sign. I'm not claiming there was. I just wanted to be clear. I was willing to sign the document I thought my son had described to me. Rachel went quiet. That sounds like something you should discuss with an attorney. I agree. I called one. Evelyn Grant had prepared the original deed 7 years earlier. She was 68 now and worked 3 days a week because, according to her, retirement was what people tried when they lacked interesting clients. Her assistant found me a cancellation at 11. Evelyn read the quitclaim twice. Then she removed her glasses. Why did you sign this? Excellent start. I'm serious. So am I. I told her what Evan had said. Estate cleanup, property documents. No explanation that my life estate was being surrendered. Then I told her about Piedmont, the appraisal, and the possible collateral. She said, first, the old deed did not require this after Linda died. You remained the surviving life tenant. So the house was mine for practical purposes. You had the exclusive possessory interest during your life. Evan and Laura held the future interest. And now, on the public record, you conveyed that interest away. Can I undo it? Maybe. That was not the word I wanted. What does maybe mean? Your signature is real. The deed was notarized and recorded. We would need a legal basis to set it aside or obtain a voluntary reconveyance. Misrepresentation? Potentially. Fraud? Potentially. I'm not labeling it before I see the complete facts. I appreciated that even while hating it. What about the locks? He changed them and gave you a key. Yes. Do you still occupy the property? Yes. Has anyone told you to leave in writing? No. Then don't turn this into an eviction case when it isn't one yet. Fair. What is urgent? The lender, she nodded. That's where I would focus. I told her Laura had not agreed to pledge the property. Evelyn looked at the recorded deed again. Evan and Laura appear to hold undivided interests. What does that mean for collateral? Laura's refusal matters if the lender wants a lien against the whole property. And Evan's half? He may be able to encumber whatever interest he owns by himself, depending on the transaction. My stomach tightened. Without me? On record, you no longer own an interest. There it was. A sentence can be legally careful and still feel like somebody moving furniture inside your chest. What happens if he defaults? We are not getting ahead of the documents. What could happen? A lender that validly takes his interest may eventually create very unpleasant co-ownership or partition issues. Meaning a stranger could become part owner of the house I live in. She sighed. That is one reason we need to notify Piedmont immediately that you dispute the transfer. Do it. I'll contact their counsel and state that you contend the quitclaim was procured through material misrepresentation. That does not magically void the deed. I understand. Good. Before I stood to leave, I asked whether I should have Ray put the old locks back. Evelyn shook her head. Not because you're surrendering anything. Because changing locks back and forth while title is disputed creates noise we don't need. So I keep using the key my son gave me to enter the house I paid for. For now. I dislike that sentence. I expected you would. She told me not to sign anything, not to agree to an appraisal, and not to let anger turn a document dispute into a family eviction scene that did not yet exist. Preserve the facts, she said. That sounded familiar enough to calm me. Facts had kept plenty of bad buildings from becoming worse ones. Before I left, Evelyn asked, why was Evan pushing you to sell before the business problem? I looked at her. What makes you think he was? You said he has been talking about downsizing for months. You said the cash problem became serious in February. I thought about it. Evan had started talking about the house before Christmas, maybe October. The first time was after he cleaned leaves from the gutters and found me replacing a loose section of fascia from a ladder. He said, Dad, this place is going to kill you. I told him the ladder was only 8 feet. He did not laugh. At the time, I thought it was ordinary son behavior. What are you asking? Whether the business explains everything. I did not answer, because it didn't. That afternoon, Laura came over. She brought a bakery box because she had inherited Linda's belief that difficult conversations require carbohydrates. We sat in the kitchen. I talked to Evan. I asked you not to. He called me again. Fine. She pushed the box toward me. Eat something before you become impossible. I'm already impossible. Mom would say that means your blood sugar is low. I took a cinnamon roll. Laura placed her phone on the table. I went back through my messages. With Evan? Yes. He has been talking about you leaving this house since before Christmas, more than I remembered. She opened a message from November. Evan had written, Dad says he'll think about a condo in the spring. I don't want him getting buried in repairs for another year. Mom would hate that. Laura had answered, Mom would hate us deciding for him more. I looked at her. That sounds like your mother. It sounds like me. Also true. She scrolled to December. Evan. He keeps treating every room like she might walk back into it. Laura. He lost his wife. Give him time. Evan. I am. But grief can turn into a decision if nobody interrupts it. That sentence bothered me. Not because it was entirely wrong, because I could hear how much he believed it. Laura said, This started before the company problem got bad. Yes. I don't think the business is the whole reason. Neither do I anymore. She became quiet, then said, There's something Mom told us. Us? Me and Evan. About 2 months before she went into the hospital the last time. I put the cinnamon roll down. What? She said if you stayed in this house after she died, we weren't supposed to let you turn it into a shrine. The kitchen went very still. She said that? Not exactly. Then, exactly. Laura closed her eyes briefly. She said, Your father will confuse staying close to me with staying in the house. Don't push him out. Just make sure he knows I'm not in the walls. I looked toward the doorway. Linda's handwriting was still on masking tape inside one kitchen cabinet where she had labeled holiday platters. Thanksgiving, Christmas. Blue one for Laura. Apparently she had been thinking about my life without her before I could. Why didn't you tell me? She didn't tell us to. That isn't an answer. She was dying, Dad. I know. She said a lot of things about what she worried would happen after. And Evan remembered this one. Yes. Convenient. Laura's face hardened. Don't do that. Do what? Turn everything he cared about into a scam, because now we know he crossed a line. I went quiet. She was right. I hated that. Laura continued. Evan has been worried about you in this house since Mom died. That part is real. So is his business problem. Yes. So he mixed them. I think so. What do you think he believes? Laura took a long time. That he can solve 2 problems with 1 decision. There it was. My house could become smaller living for me and emergency capital for him. In Evan's mind, those outcomes had probably started reinforcing each other until neither felt selfish. He did not need to think, I am taking Dad's house. He only needed to think, Dad should move anyway, and my share is already mine someday. The business had not created his belief that I should leave. It had given that belief a deadline. Laura reached into her purse. One more thing. She handed me a printed email Evan had sent 6 days earlier. Subject: Monday paperwork. Piedmont wants the appraisal first. If the value works, we can decide whether to use only my interest or both shares. I am not asking you to sign a guarantee. Dad will be taken care of either way. I read the last sentence twice. Taken care of. Laura said nothing. What did you think this meant? I thought he was talking about selling eventually. And now? Now I think he has been making a plan around you instead of with you. I folded the paper. Evan was not simply trying to steal an inheritance. He believed I should leave the house. He believed Linda had worried I would stay too long. He believed his business needed help. And he had started treating those 3 beliefs like one permission. The problem had become larger than a bad deed. My son was no longer asking whether his plan was mine. He was asking only whether he could make the pieces fit. And until Evelyn could challenge the transfer, the county record said he owned enough of my future to keep trying. She did not have to wait long for Evan to keep trying. At 9 the next morning, Evelyn called. Piedmont's counsel responded. I set down my coffee. That was fast. Commercial lenders become efficient when somebody uses the words disputed title. What did they say? They have suspended the appraisal and any underwriting involving your property until they understand the ownership issue. Good. Mostly. I heard the qualification. What does mostly mean? They also asked Evan for clarification. That sounds like his problem. It may become other people's problem. I looked toward Linda's chair by the window. His employees. Yes. Evelyn was quiet for a moment. George, I need you not to contact Piedmont directly. I haven't. Good. I was thinking about it. Don't. Why? Because right now I have made one narrow claim. You dispute the deed because you say its legal effect was materially misrepresented to you. That is true, yes. If you call and start accusing your son of fraud, the lender may react to more than the property. I did not like being managed. I liked even less that she was probably right. Understood. Do you? Apparently everybody has started asking me that. She laughed once, then became serious. I'm not protecting Evan's business from consequences. I'm protecting your position from unnecessary noise. That I understood. At 11:17, Evan called. He skipped hello. Piedmont froze the increase. I know. Did your lawyer contact them? Yes. You couldn't talk to me first? I almost laughed. Interesting complaint. He went quiet. That's fair. It was the first time he had conceded something before I had to drag it out of him. Then he said, I need to see you. About what? A proposal. What kind? One that doesn't involve selling the house. I looked at the new deadbolt. Come at 1. He arrived 12 minutes early carrying a black folder. No boxes, no blue tape. Progress. We sat at the kitchen table. Evan opened the folder. I talked to Piedmont this morning. I assumed they won't consider the house while the deed is disputed. Good. He looked at me. I know that's good for you. That sentence is doing dangerous work. He sighed. Let me finish. I waited. I can keep the company going without a sale if I can get a smaller increase. Backed by what? My house, equipment, receivables. You already pledged those, most of them. Then what changed? I can add a personal guarantee and reduce the amount I'm asking for. How much? 125. You said you needed 200. I can slow 2 jobs and negotiate payment plans with vendors. That sounds unpleasant. It is. But possible. Yes. I looked at the folder. So why are you here? He slid 1 page toward me. Because my quitclaim deed remained on record, Piedmont's counsel wanted clarity about my occupancy. The proposed document would acknowledge that I lived in the property with the permission of Evan and Laura while the ownership dispute was being resolved. I read that sentence twice, then pushed the page back. No. Dad, it doesn't pledge the house. It says I live here with your permission. It's temporary. No. It helps separate your occupancy from the financing. My occupancy was separated perfectly well until you took it away on paper. He pressed his fingertips against his forehead. I need the lender comfortable that this dispute is contained. It isn't contained. Then what do you want me to do? Give the property back. His eyes lifted. If I sign a new deed restoring your life estate, Piedmont sees it as me pulling an asset out while they're reviewing my credit. It was never your available asset. On title it is. I stared at him. He corrected himself. I know why you hate hearing that. Good. He closed the folder. If I reconvey today, I may lose the line completely. Then lose it. The words came faster than I intended. Evan looked at me as if I had struck him. That easy? No. You think I haven't put anything else into this company? I didn't say that. You think I saw your house and decided I'd rather risk yours than mine? I don't know what you've risked. Exactly. He stood. I stayed seated. He started counting on his fingers. We refinanced our house last year. Rebecca and I put $140,000 into the company. I had not known that. I stopped contributing to my retirement 8 months ago. I had not known that either. I sold the boat. You said you didn't use it. I didn't. That sounded like Evan. He continued. I cut my salary almost in half in March. Rebecca picked up more hours. I let my truck go back at the end of the lease and bought the used Silverado you keep asking why I'm driving. I looked down. I had teased him about that truck twice. So no, he said. I did not start with your house. The anger in his voice was real, so was the exhaustion. I never said you did. You're treating me like I wanted this. You did want it. I wanted a way through. That used my property. Yes. Finally. No argument. Yes. He sat again. Because I thought you should sell anyway. There was the collision of motives, not greed replacing concern, concern making greed easier to excuse. If you believed I should stay here another 10 years, would you have asked me for the deed? Evan did not answer. That is the question? I don't know. Then think. He looked toward the window. After almost a minute, he said, Probably not. That was more useful than another apology. So the business didn't create the idea. No, it turned the idea into money. His jaw tightened. Yes, and urgency. Yes, I nodded. Now we're finally discussing the same thing. Evan left the proposed occupancy agreement on the table. I put it in the folder with everything else. Then I made my mistake. At 2:40 against Evelyn's instructions, I called Piedmont Commercial Credit. I told myself I was not interfering. I only wanted one fact confirmed: whether any lien had already been placed against the property. A man named Curtis in loan administration transferred me to compliance after I gave him the address. The compliance officer was careful. She would not discuss Evan's borrowing. I understood. I'm not asking about his balance. What information are you seeking, Mr. Keller? I need to know whether Piedmont currently claims any interest in my house. There was a pause. Based on the property records available to me, no deed of trust in favor of Piedmont has been recorded against that address. I breathed out. Thank you. I should have stopped. Instead, I said, and you understand my son got title by misleading me about what I was signing. The woman became quieter. I'm aware there is a dispute. It wasn't a misunderstanding. Mr. Keller, he needed collateral for his company before he brought me the deed. I think you should communicate through counsel. So do I. Again, I should have stopped. Then I said one more thing. He represented my property as available to his lender when he knew I intended to live here for the rest of my life. The woman thanked me and ended the call. I felt better for approximately 20 minutes. Then Evelyn called. What did you do? That is rarely how you want your attorney to begin. I asked Piedmont whether they had a lien. I specifically told you not to call them. I did not threaten anybody. That isn't the problem. What happened? Piedmont escalated the file to internal credit review. My stomach tightened. So? They have temporarily suspended additional draws on Evan's existing line, while they evaluate whether there were material misrepresentations in his credit application. I stood. I didn't ask them to do that. No, you gave their compliance officer information she considered relevant. Isn't it relevant? Maybe. Then what is the problem? The problem is you wanted one answer and created 6 new consequences. That sounded uncomfortably like something I used to tell contractors. What happens now? I don't know. Can they freeze money he already borrowed? Not retroactively. But they can stop new advances if the agreement allows it. I closed my eyes. Payroll. Possibly. Vendors. Possibly. I rubbed my forehead. Can you fix it? That is not your question. What is? Did Piedmont need to know there may have been misrepresentations? Yes. Eventually, through the proper channel. I waited. Evelyn continued. But you were angry, George. Yes. And you wanted them to understand how wrong Evan was. I did not answer. You didn't just verify the lien. No. You made an argument. Yes. That argument may be accurate. It may also have consequences you were not trying to create. She was right. I hated that more than if she had scolded me. At 4:11, Rebecca called. Evan's wife had never called me from work in 24 years of marriage. George. Hi, Rebecca. Piedmont froze the line. I heard. Did you call them? There was no point lying. Yes. She became silent, then said, Evan has payroll tomorrow. How much? 53,000 roughly. My stomach tightened. Can he cover it? He's trying. Rebecca, I am not asking you for money. Her voice was tired. I need you to know that before you hear anything else. All right. He's calling clients. 2 promised partial payments. I moved money from our savings this afternoon. How much? That isn't your business. Fair. I'm sorry. She softened. I know. Then she said something I did not expect. I'm angry at him, too. I sat down. About the deed? Yes. You knew? I knew he wanted you to sell. That wasn't my question? No, she sighed. I knew he brought you property paperwork. He told me you had decided to give the house to him and Laura early because you were finally ready to move. I closed my eyes. I never told him that. I know that now. What did you think when I kept living here? That you were taking time, while he changed the locks. I did not know about that until yesterday. Her voice sharpened. I told him that was insane. That sounded like Rebecca. She continued. But George, he is not sitting on a pile of cash laughing about your house. I know. He's terrified. I know. He has people working for him who have been with him 10 years. I know. And he has made this worse because every time one thing started failing, he tried to solve it without admitting how bad the last thing was. That sentence stayed with me. Not because it excused him, because I recognized the pattern. The business had not collapsed in one moment. Neither had our trust. A delayed receivable, a refinanced house, a smaller paycheck, a deed described inaccurately, a lender, an appraisal, a locksmith. Each step made the next one easier to justify. Rebecca said, "I'm not asking you to sign anything." Good. "I'm asking you not to make tomorrow about whether he deserves to fail." "I don't want his company to fail." "I know." The phrase sounded strange coming from someone else. After we hung up, I sat in Linda's chair. The occupancy agreement was on the table. If I signed it, I might help Evan reassure the lender. I would also be acknowledging that my right to live in my own home came from my children's permission. I could not do that. Not even for payroll, especially not out of guilt for a phone call I should not have made. At 6:30, Laura texted, "Evan says he may have to furlough 3 people next week if Piedmont doesn't reopen draws. He blames you. I told him that isn't the whole story. I read it several times." Then another message arrived. "Dad, did you really call the lender after Evelyn told you not to?" I answered, "Yes, that was a mistake. It was difficult to write. Necessary too. By bedtime, the dispute had stopped being only about what Evan did to me. My son had crossed a serious line. Then I had let anger convince me that because I was right about the deed, I could not make the situation worse. I had. 3 employees who had never seen my house might now lose hours because I wanted a lender to understand my son's lie immediately. That did not mean I should surrender the house to repair the damage. It meant quiet justice would require something harder than proving Evan wrong. I would have to protect what was mine without pretending everyone hurt by the fallout deserved to be there. The next morning, I found out payroll had cleared. Rebecca texted me at 8:22. Everyone got paid. 2 clients wired partial payments. We moved some savings. Nobody missed a check. I read it twice. Then I answered, "Good." I did not ask how much savings. I had learned my lesson the day before about turning concern into access. At 10, Evan sent a shorter message. "Piedmont still has the line frozen. I'm meeting with them this afternoon." I started typing a question. Deleted it. Whatever happened at that meeting belonged to him unless it affected my house. That separation was harder than it sounded. For years, Evan had called me when projects went wrong. Not every time. Usually when the problem involved an inspection, a permit, or a contractor insisting some shortcut was industry standard. He would send photographs. I would ask annoying questions. Sometimes I found something useful. Sometimes I told him to listen to his own engineer. I had always liked being asked. Useful is a dangerous feeling for a father. You can start thinking being useful gives you permanent access to your child's problems. That afternoon, I went through Linda's estate file again. Not because I was hunting for another weapon, because something Laura had said would not leave me alone. Don't push him out. Just make sure he knows I'm not in the walls. That sounded like Linda. It also sounded incomplete. Evelyn had prepared our estate documents 7 years earlier, so I called her office and asked whether her file contained notes from the original planning meetings. "It does." "Can I see them?" "Most of them." "Why most?" "Attorney work product. You lawyers really know how to make ordinary paper sound dangerous. That's why you paid me." She sent what she could. 40 minutes later, I was sitting at my desk reading 7-year-old emails between Linda, Evelyn, and me. Most were boring: spellings, addresses, questions about beneficiary designations, whether our checking account should remain jointly owned. Then I found an email Linda sent Evelyn after one of our meetings. I was copied. I had received it 7 years earlier. I had apparently read it badly enough to forget the important part. "Evelyn, I want to make sure I understood the house arrangement. If either George or I dies, the survivor gets to stay in the house, or sell it, without needing permission from Evan or Laura, correct? The kids get what is left after both of us are gone, but they don't get to decide when the survivor is finished living there." Evelyn replied, "Correct. The reserved life estate is intended to preserve the surviving spouse's possessory rights during life. We can review alternatives if you want more flexibility. But your understanding is correct." Linda answered 15 minutes later. "Good. Keep it that way. Evan likes to solve problems before anyone agrees they are problems." I laughed, then stopped. There was another line. "I love him. I also know him." That hurt in a way legal documents had not. Not because Linda distrusted our son, because she understood him. So had I. We just understood different parts. I remembered the meeting now. Evan had not been there. Neither had Laura. Linda sat beside me in Evelyn's conference room and asked more questions about the house than I did. At the time, I thought she was worried I would remarry some 25-year-old yoga instructor and leave everything to a woman named Crystal. She actually made that joke in the parking lot. I told her Crystal would probably prefer a man with better knees. We laughed. I had reduced the serious part of the conversation to a joke. Linda had been building a boundary around whichever one of us survived. I called Evelyn. "You remember the email?" "Yes." "You kept it." "I keep everything." "That is unpleasantly familiar." She ignored that. "Why? Did Linda ever say more about why she wanted the life estate?" Evelyn paused. "Not because she distrusted the children financially. I know. She was concerned about pressure. From Evan, mostly. What kind? She thought he could become overly practical when he believed something needed fixing. That sounded exactly like him. Did she mention Laura?" Laura worried differently. "How?" "She tended to avoid decisions until everyone was comfortable." I smiled. "Also accurate?" "What did Linda think I would do?" Evelyn laughed softly. "Argue." "That sounds unfair." "It was probably affectionate." Then she became serious. She wanted the survivor to have time. I looked toward Linda's side of the bedroom through the open office door. "Time for what?" "Whatever came after." That was all. Not money, not inheritance. Time. After I hung up, I reread Linda's email. They don't get to decide when the survivor is finished living there. The original deed was no longer just paperwork designed to avoid probate. It was a choice Linda had made specifically because she understood our family. That changed the meaning of what Evan had done. He had not simply altered an estate planning mechanism. He had removed the exact protection his mother had insisted remain. At 4:30, Laura came over. I showed her the email. She read it without speaking. Then she handed the page back. "I remember this." "You saw it?" "Not the email." "What?" "Mom saying that about Evan." "When?" "Years ago." I waited. Laura sat at the kitchen table. "Remember when Evan wanted you two to sell the lake lot?" I did. We had owned 2 wooded acres near Lake Anna that Linda inherited from her father. No house, just trees, a rough gravel entrance, and 1 optimistic survey marker. Evan thought we should sell while prices were high. He was probably right. Linda wanted to keep it because her father had taught her to fish there. We kept it 4 more years, then sold it for substantially less than Evan said we could have gotten earlier. He never let me forget that. "What about it?" "Mom said Evan was usually right about the practical part." "That sounds generous." "She said the problem was that he thought being right about the practical part meant he was entitled to the decision." I sat down. That sentence belonged beside the deed. "What did you tell her?" "That she should tell him." "Did she?" Laura smiled slightly. "You met Mom." "Fair." Linda was capable of directness when it mattered. She was also capable of avoiding an argument for 6 months if she thought the argument would eventually become unnecessary. "What happened?" She told him no. "The lake lot." "Yes." He complained. "Yes." "And survived." "Barely." We both smiled. Then Laura's expression changed. She talked about the house again when she got sick. "I know." "No." Laura looked at me carefully. "I mean, before the conversation I told you about." I waited. "She and Evan had an argument." "When?" "Maybe 4 months before she died." "About the house?" "Yes." I felt something tighten. "What kind of argument?" "I wasn't there for all of it." "Tell me what you know." Laura hesitated, then said, "Evan had brought up getting the downstairs ready so you could stay there alone if you had to." That sounded reasonable. During Linda's illness, I had installed grab bars and replaced 1 interior door because moving medical equipment through it had become difficult. What did he want to do? "Convert the den into a permanent bedroom, put in a bigger shower, maybe add a ramp." He mentioned that. "You said no." "I said not yet." Laura nodded. "Mom thought he was doing it again." "Doing what?" "Deciding what the next stage was before you two got there." I looked toward the downstairs den. We had never converted it. Linda used it for reading until almost the end. She told him the house was not his project. That sounded like her too. What did Evan say? That he was trying to help. Also sounds like him. They argued. How bad? Not terrible. Laura looked down. But Mom told him something afterward. What? She said if she died first, he had to promise not to use her death as proof that you couldn't stay here. I did not move. Those words? Close. What were the words? Laura thought. She said, your father may choose to leave. That is not the same as you deciding grief means he should. I looked away. That one went through me, because Evan had done almost exactly that. Every cemetery visit, every meal over the sink, every room I had not changed. He had turned signs of grief into evidence for a move he already believed was practical. Did he promise? Laura became quiet. Yes. I closed my eyes. What did he say? He said he understood. Did he? I think he did then. Then, that word mattered. People rarely break their promises while thinking. I am now becoming the person I promised not to be. They build a bridge, one justification at a time. Dad said the house was too much. Dad mentioned condos. Mom worried he would get stuck. The company needs capital. The deed can be simplified. He signed it. The house will be sold eventually. I am not taking anything that won't be mine someday. By the time you reach the other side, the promise looks like it belonged to somebody else. I asked Laura, did you know he brought me the quitclaim? No. Would you have stopped him? Yes. The answer came immediately. That hurt too. Not because Laura was better, because Evan knew she might stop him. So, he had not told her enough to let her. At 6, Evan called. I almost did not answer. Then I did. Piedmont meeting go well? Not exactly. What does that mean? They'll probably keep the existing line open once the compliance review is done, but no increase. That sounds survivable. It is. The word came reluctantly. What does survival look like? Slower? I waited. 2 projects delayed. I'm reducing my salary again. Rebecca and I are listing the rental property. I did not know they still owned a rental property, a small townhouse Rebecca had inherited from her father. You don't have to tell me this. I know. There was the phrase again. This time it sounded different. I'm telling you because I don't want you thinking your house is still part of the plan. I sat back. Is it? No? Then restore the deed. He went quiet. I'm working on that. With whom? Mercer? No. Dad. Use Evelyn. He sighed. You don't trust Mercer. I don't blame Mercer. Then why? Because Evelyn prepared the original plan and she represents me. Silence. That is the point. Yes, he breathed out. I'll call her. I should have ended the conversation there. Instead, I said, Laura told me about Mom. Another silence. What about her? The promise. Nothing. I could hear him breathing. You remember. Yes. That one word changed more than a denial would have. She told you not to use her death as proof I needed to leave. Yes. You promised. Yes. And then you used my cemetery visits as evidence that I was stuck. He said nothing. You marked repairs while I was standing at her grave. I know. You changed the locks because you knew I'd be gone long enough. Yes. His voice had gone rough. I waited for an explanation. None came. Finally, Evan said, I need to tell you something about that promise. I looked at Linda's email on the table. What? There was another one? I felt the room change. What other one? Something Mom made me promise that she never told you. I said nothing. Evan continued. It was about the house. And for the first time since Ray Morales whispered to me on the porch, I realized the deed might not be the only agreement about my home that had been made without me. What other promise? Evan did not answer immediately. I could hear traffic behind him, a turn signal clicking. Then the sound disappeared, as if he had pulled off the road. Dad, I don't want you hearing this like Mom gave me permission for what I did. That is an interesting way to begin. She didn't. Then tell me what she did say. He breathed out. It was near the end. Before she went back to the hospital, I sat down. Linda's last weeks were divided in my memory by equipment. The oxygen concentrator, the walker she hated, the plastic box that held medication syringes, the shower chair she tolerated only because Laura ordered one, in a color Linda said looked less medical. I could place almost any conversation by what object had entered our house that week. What day? I don't remember. Approximately. Maybe 10 days before she went back. I knew the period. Linda was still sleeping in our bedroom then, though some nights she used the recliner because lying flat made breathing harder. What happened? You went to the pharmacy. I said nothing. She asked me to sit down. Where? The den. I looked through the doorway, the same room Evan had later wanted to convert into a permanent bedroom for me. What did she say? He hesitated again. She asked whether I thought you would be okay after she died. My throat tightened. And? I said yes. That was optimistic. She said I was lying. Despite everything, I smiled. That sounded like Linda. Evan continued. She said you would pay the bills, keep the yard up, go to the doctor, fix things that didn't need fixing. That also sounds like her. She wasn't worried you'd fall apart in the way people expect. I stared at the floor. What was she worried about? That you'd get very good at functioning without actually moving forward. I did not like the sentence, maybe because I understood it too quickly. Evan continued. She said the house would make that easy. I looked around the kitchen. Linda chose the cabinets, the tile, the ridiculous faucet with the pull-down sprayer she insisted was worth the extra money. Her handwriting still existed inside drawers and closets. The house did make remembering easy. What did she ask you to promise? Evan took a breath. She said if a year went by and you were still organizing your whole life around missing her, I had to make you look at other options. Make me. She said push. That sounds different. It was. What kind of options? Travel, volunteering again, moving, anything. So the house was one possibility. Yes. Not the instruction. No. That mattered. I waited. Evan said, then she made me promise something else. I looked at Linda's email on the table. What? That I could push you to look. His voice lowered. But I was never supposed to decide for you. I closed my eyes. There it was. So you remembered both? Yes. The part about not letting me get stuck? Yes. And the part about the decision remaining mine? Yes. Yet you changed the deed? Yes. You knew exactly what she had asked you not to do? Silence. Yes. That answer hurt more than another argument would have. For several days, I had been constructing explanations for Evan. The business, cash flow, my grief, Linda's worries, my comments about downsizing. He had blended everything together until the plan seemed reasonable to him. But this was different. He had not merely misunderstood his mother. He had remembered the boundary and crossed it anyway. Why? Evan's voice became rough. Because after the first year, you were still here. I almost laughed. That was the threshold? No. Then what? You still had Mom's coats in the hall closet. My eyes moved toward the hallway. 3 of them. A navy raincoat, a winter coat, a light tan jacket Linda bought on sale, and then complained was too expensive for 6 years. What else? You still buy her coffee. I frowned. What? The decaf. I looked toward the pantry. Linda drank decaf after 4. I did not. There was still a container there. I had replaced it twice since she died. I did not know why. Evan continued. You still keep her place setting in the china cabinet exactly the way she arranged it. That is called not reorganizing furniture. You stopped going to Richmond Flying Squirrels games with Mike. Mike moved to Williamsburg. That is an hour away. He hates night driving. So do you. Apparently everyone does. Evan did not laugh. You stopped going to the building inspector's lunch. I went in March. Once, I rubbed my forehead. What does any of this have to do with ownership? That's the problem. His voice broke slightly. I kept seeing things and thinking Mom had warned me. So you appointed yourself the judge? Yes. When did you decide I was stuck? I don't know. That is not good enough. I know. Before the business trouble? Yes. That mattered. Before February? Yes. Before you contacted Mercer? Yes. How long before? Christmas, maybe. I thought back. Christmas had been awful. Not dramatic. Nobody fought. Everybody tried too hard. Laura brought Linda's sweet potato casserole and apologized because it tasted wrong. Sophie hung the stockings. Evan sat in Linda's chair without realizing it, then stood so quickly he almost knocked over the side table. I left her stocking in the box. Maybe that was when he decided something. What happened at Christmas? You disappeared after dinner. I went upstairs. For almost an hour. I needed quiet. I know. You followed me? No. Then? Sophie found you sitting on Mom's side of the bed. I remembered. Not because I was collapsing. I had gone upstairs to put away a sweater and ended up holding one of Linda's scarves. Sophie came in, sat beside me. We talked for maybe 10 minutes, then she went downstairs. That made you think I needed to move? No. It became evidence. Evan went silent. The word had landed where I meant it to. Evidence. He had inspected my grief the way I inspected buildings, looked for signs, grouped them, assigned meaning, then acted. Except he had skipped the part where the owner gets to explain what he intends to do with his own structure. Did you ever ask me whether I was happy here? Yes. No. You asked whether the yard was too much. He said nothing. You asked whether I had considered condos. Yes. You asked whether the stairs bothered me. Yes. Did you ever sit down and ask whether staying here made me feel closer to your mother in a way that was helping or hurting? No. Why? I thought you'd explain it away. I looked at Linda's photograph on the sideboard. So, again, because you didn't trust the answer, you stopped asking the question. Yes. That was the family wound underneath everything. Not the deed. Not Piedmont. Not the lock. Evan had become so convinced that I could argue around any concern that he stopped treating my answers as meaningful. And I had become so practiced at explaining why concern was unnecessary that maybe I had helped teach him to do it. That did not excuse what came next. It made it more painful. Did your mother want me to sell this house? No. The answer came immediately. Did she want me out? No. Did she believe I'd be incapable of deciding? No. Then say what she wanted. Evan was quiet. Finally, she wanted you to keep choosing. That one got through. Not keep the house, not sell it. Choose. I ended the call 10 minutes later. No reconciliation. No decision about the deed. I told Evan I needed time. Then I walked through the house, not inspecting it. Looking. Linda's raincoat. The decaf. Her gardening gloves in a basket beside the back door. A bottle of hand lotion on her nightstand so old the pump no longer worked. Her hospital medication schedule was still taped inside a kitchen cabinet. That one stopped me. I had no reason to keep it. None. Prednisone, ondansetron, morphine, times written in my handwriting. The schedule belonged to a woman who no longer needed medicine. I stood there with the cabinet open. Then I removed the paper. It left 4 small pieces of old tape. I peeled those off too. That was all I did. I did not empty Linda's closet. I did not throw away the decaf. I did not call a realtor. Grief does not become healthy because you attack it with garbage bags. That evening, Laura came over. I told her what Evan had said. She cried. Not much. Just enough to make me wish I had not told her. Then I asked, "Do you think I stopped living?" She looked uncomfortable. "I think sometimes you stop starting things." That was not the answer I expected. What does that mean? You finish things. Such as? Bills, repairs, appointments, birthdays? She wiped her eyes. But you don't start much anymore. I thought about it. No trips, no projects that were not maintenance. No new memberships, no changes to the house unless something broke. I had mistaken staying functional for staying engaged. Maybe Linda had seen that coming. Do you think I should move? I think you should decide. The answer came immediately. I smiled. Your mother would approve. Laura nodded. And if you decide to stay here forever, I'll complain about the stairs and then shut up. That sounds reasonable. And if you decide to sell next year, it should be because you want the next place. Not because Evan needs money. Correct. We sat quietly. Then Laura said, Dad, I'll sign whatever Evelyn needs to give your life estate back. That mattered. What about Evan? He says he will too. He told you? Yes. When? Today. I looked at her. Before or after he told me about Mom? Before. That mattered more. The next morning, I called Evelyn. I want the deed restored. That is what I recommend. Completely. Yes. No occupancy agreement, no permission language. Agreed. And after it is recorded, I want a valuation done. She paused. Of the house? Yes. For sale? No. Then why? Because someday I may sell it. She was quiet. And I want that decision to begin with information I requested. I could hear her smile. Good. One more thing. Yes? If I decide to move 6 months from now, I do not want Evan believing that proves he was right. That sounds like a family issue, not a title issue. It is. What does it prove? I looked through the window at the front yard Linda and I had planted 34 years earlier. That I still get to change my mind after someone tries to take the choice away. Evelyn was quiet, then said, "I'll prepare the documents." When we ended the call, I took the new front door key from my pocket. I set it beside Linda's old medication schedule. One object represented what Evan had done without asking. The other represented something I had kept long after its purpose ended. For the first time, I could see that I might need to let go of both, but only one of them was mine to decide when. The next morning, Rebecca called before 8. "I need to show you something." Her voice sounded careful. "About Evan?" "Yes." "Can you email it?" "I'd rather bring it." That told me enough to cancel my plans, which consisted mostly of buying furnace filters and avoiding the stack of sympathy cards I still had not decided whether to keep. Rebecca arrived 40 minutes later. She carried no purse, only her phone. She declined coffee, which was unusual enough that I noticed. We sat at the kitchen table. "I went through my messages with Evan," she said. "Why?" "Because he keeps saying the deed started as part of helping you move." "It did, partly." "I know." She looked uncomfortable. "But I wanted to know what he had told me before you signed." She placed the phone between us. The conversation was from 5 weeks earlier, 2 days before Natalie Warren came to my house. Evan had written, "Mercer finished Dad's deed. Once the life estate is gone, everything gets simpler. Rebecca." "He agreed?" Evan: "He agreed to clean up the house documents." Rebecca: "That isn't what I asked." I stopped reading. Rebecca watched me. "Keep going." The next message arrived 11 minutes later. Evan: "He knows Laura and I get the house. This just moves that piece forward." Rebecca: "Does he know it means he doesn't own his part anymore?" Evan: "He still lives there. Nothing changes for him right now." My hand tightened around the edge of the table. That was the sentence. Not because it was legally sophisticated, because it showed Evan understood the distinction he had hidden from me. Nothing changes for him right now, meaning something had changed. Rebecca had responded, "Then explain it that way before he signs." Evan: "If I turn this into a 3-hour property law discussion, he'll refuse because he hates being pushed." Rebecca: "That sounds like a reason to explain it, not a reason not to." There were no messages for almost an hour. Then Evan wrote, "I'm not stealing his house. He needs to get unstuck. If title is already settled, we can show him real options, instead of arguing about whether he might move someday." I put the phone down. Rebecca said nothing. I stared toward the cabinet where Linda's medication schedule had been taped. "What did you think he meant?" "That you had already agreed to give them the house." "Even after you asked whether I understood?" I thought he was oversimplifying it to me. "That sounds familiar." "Yes," she swallowed. "I should have called you." "No." "George?" "No." I looked at her. "You asked the right question. He gave you an answer designed to make the concern smaller." Rebecca's eyes filled. "I still should have called." "Maybe." There was no point turning her guilt into my comfort. I picked up the phone again. One final message appeared the next morning. The day before, I signed. Rebecca: "Promise me you're not doing this because Piedmont needs more collateral." Evan: "Piedmont is one reason timing matters. It isn't the reason Dad should move." I stopped. There it was in writing. Not a confession to theft, something more believable, and to me, more painful. Evan knew the business need and my living situation were separate questions. He joined them deliberately. Rebecca said, "I didn't know Piedmont meant your house." "What did you think?" "His company refinancing." "Fair." He had already refinanced our house. I thought he was looking at equipment or the rental. I nodded. Then I read Evan's next message. "If we wait until Dad decides on his own, this could take years." Rebecca: "Then it takes years." Evan: "Mom didn't want him disappearing into that house." Rebecca: "Your mother also didn't appoint you to run his life." There were no more messages that day. I handed the phone back. For almost a week, I had wondered exactly when Evan crossed the line. Now I knew there had not been one dramatic moment. He saw several things that were all partly true. I was grieving. I had become less active. The house was larger than I needed. Linda had worried I might stop starting things. His company needed money. Laura and he would eventually inherit the property. Piedmont wanted collateral. Each fact pushed in roughly the same direction. So, Evan stopped asking whether they belonged in the same decision. Worse, people had warned him. Laura, Rebecca, Linda before she died. He had not lacked another perspective. He had decided his urgency mattered more. "Does Evan know you're showing me this?" Rebecca shook her head. "No." I disliked that immediately. "Then call him." Her eyes widened. "Now?" "Yes. George, I'm not keeping another family conversation where the person being discussed is the last one to know." She stared at me, then nodded. Evan answered on speaker. "Hey," Rebecca said. "I'm at your dad's." Silence. "With him?" "Yes." Another silence. "I showed him our messages from before the deed." I heard Evan breathe out. "Okay." Not anger, not accusation, just defeat. I leaned closer to the phone. "Did you mean what you wrote?" "Yes." "All of it?" "Yes." "You knew I might refuse if I understood the life estate was being removed?" "Yes." There it was, the deepest part. "You weren't worried I lacked capacity?" "No." "You weren't worried I couldn't understand?" "No." "You were worried I would understand and say no?" His voice became very quiet. "Yes." I stood and walked toward the window. For days I had been angry about manipulation. This was something cleaner. My son had not taken advantage of weakness. He had taken advantage of trust. I had been fully capable of deciding. That was exactly why he had limited the information. "You knew I could make the decision," I said. "Yes." "And you decided the problem was what my decision might be?" "Yes." Rebecca covered her eyes with one hand. I looked outside. Linda's hydrangeas were starting to brown, another season changing without asking any of us. "What did you think would happen after I signed?" Evan hesitated. "Honestly, that would be refreshing. I thought once the appraisal gave us a real number, I could show you a condo, show you what you'd have left after a sale, and you'd realize moving wasn't losing Mom." I said nothing. "And if I could strengthen the company line at the same time, I thought that made the timing make even more sense." "To you?" "Yes." "What if I still said no?" Silence. That was the question. What if the deed was changed, the house appraised, the lender ready, and I still said I wanted to stay? Evan took a long time. I would have kept pushing. "That isn't what I asked." "I know." "What would you have done?" His answer came so quietly I almost missed it. "I don't know." That frightened me more than if he had said sell, because it meant he had built the machinery before deciding where he believed his authority ended. "You changed the locks." "Yes." "Why?" I told myself it was practical. "What did you actually want?" Another silence. "Control of access." Rebecca lowered her hand. Evan continued. "If the appraiser came, if Angela eventually came through, if contractors needed access, I wanted one set of keys I controlled." I closed my eyes. My son had turned my home into a project. Not metaphorically, literally. Access, appraisal, repairs, financing, sale preparation. I had become the occupant he expected to convince later. "You did it while I was at the cemetery because you knew I'd be gone." "Yes." "Did you schedule Ray for that time, intentionally?" "Yes." No explanation followed. He finally understood explanations had run out. I sat down. Rebecca was crying silently. I was not yet. I asked one last question. "If Piedmont had never existed, would you have changed that deed this year?" Evan thought. "No." That answer completed it. The concern about me was real. The business need was real. But neither alone would have produced what he did. He used one to justify the other. My grief gave him a moral reason. His company gave him a deadline. The inheritance gave him a tool. And my trust gave him the signature. "I need you to call Evelyn today," I said. "I already did." I looked at the phone. "When?" "Yesterday afternoon." "What did you tell her?" "That I'll sign whatever is needed to return the property." "Life estate?" "I told her whatever you want." That mattered. "Good." "I'm sorry." "I know." "I don't expect that to fix it." "Good." His voice broke. "I really thought I was helping you." "I believe that." Rebecca looked at me. Evan became silent. Then I said, "That is part of why this hurts." We ended the call. Rebecca stayed another 20 minutes. Neither of us said much. After she left, I went upstairs. I opened Linda's closet. Not because Evan had been right. Not because a dead woman had left instructions I was obligated to obey. Because Laura's sentence had stayed with me. I finished things. I did not start much. I took Linda's tan jacket from the hanger, held it, put it back. Then I found a cardboard box. I packed only the things I had already known. Privately, I did not need. Expired medication, old oxygen tubing, 2 unopened packages of hospital bed pads, the folder containing home health schedules, a plastic basin nobody had used since the week before Linda died. I carried the box downstairs. That was enough. At 4, Evelyn called. Evan and Laura have both authorized me to prepare a deed reconveying full title to you. I stopped. Full title? Yes. Not just restoring the life estate? That is what Evan requested. I sat down. What does that do to the old remainder arrangement? It ends it. You would own the property outright again. And after I die, you can decide separately how you want it transferred. I looked toward the box of medical supplies by the door. Choice returned in a cleaner form than before. What do you recommend? Given what happened, I recommend restoring full ownership first. Then we revisit your estate plan when you are not making decisions in the middle of a dispute. That sounds sensible. I have my moments. When can we sign? Thursday. I looked at the new front door key lying on the counter. Evan too? Yes. Laura? Yes. Good. After the call, I carried the box to my car, then stopped. Evan had my old spare key. Laura had another. The new locks were technically better than the old ones. For the first time, changing them back seemed pointless. The hardware had not betrayed me. My son had. So I left the deadbolt where it was. I put the box in the trunk and drove to the county household waste facility with Linda's expired medications, separated for proper disposal. When I returned, I unlocked the front door with the new key. It still felt unfamiliar. But this time, I noticed something I had missed all week. A key is only permission when somebody else controls the door. On Thursday, if everyone signed what they said they would sign, the door would be mine again. After that, whether I stayed behind it would finally become the question it should have been from the beginning. Mine. Thursday morning, I woke before 6. Not because I was nervous about signing, because I had spent most of the night wondering what I wanted the signing to mean. If I treated it as victory, Evan would become the man who tried to take my house and failed. If I treated it as forgiveness, I would be pretending trust returned because a document did. Neither was true. At 8:30, I called Ray Morales. He answered from his van. Mr. Keller, George is fine. That usually means I'm in trouble. You're not. I thanked him for telling me to check the deed. He was quiet for a moment. I wasn't sure I should. Why did you? Ray hesitated. When Evan called about changing the locks, I remembered you. That is flattering. You were living there 12 years ago when I did the back door. I'm still living there. That's what bothered me. What did he tell you? That the property had transferred to him and his sister. That part was technically true. He also said you were transitioning out. I closed my eyes. Those words had never been spoken to me. Transitioning where? He didn't say. Did you ask? Yes. What did he answer? That the family was working on it. Family. That word again. A convenient collection of people who had not actually agreed to the same thing. Ray continued. I asked whether you knew the locks were being changed. What did he say? He said yes. I sat very still. Exactly yes? He said, Dad knows we're getting the house ready. That was not exactly yes. It was better. Safer. A sentence designed to let the listener supply the permission himself. Why didn't you refuse the job? Ray sighed. He showed me the recorded deed. His name was on title. Yours wasn't. Fair. And you gave him keys? Yes. Did you keep copies? No. Good. I thanked him again. Before hanging up, Ray said, for what it's worth, he didn't act like somebody trying to throw you out. What did he act like? A contractor. That answer stayed with me, because it was exactly right. Evan had not walked through my home like a thief. He had walked through it like a project manager. That was part of the problem. At 10, Marion, no, I caught myself. Linda. 14 months after she died, I still occasionally formed the first syllable of her name when I met someone else. There was nobody driving me to Evelyn's office. I drove myself. That small fact mattered. I parked beneath a maple tree and sat for a minute with the folder on the passenger seat. Original life estate deed, quit claim deed, Linda's email, Rebecca's screenshots, Mercer Closing Services records, Piedmont correspondence. I did not need all of it. I brought it anyway. Old habits. Evelyn's conference room had the same heavy table from 7 years earlier. Laura arrived first. She hugged me, then said, "You look tired. I'm 72. That isn't what I said." Family trait. She smiled. Evan arrived 3 minutes later. He looked worse than I did. No tie, work shirt, dark circles beneath his eyes. He carried no folder. That surprised me. Rebecca did not come. This was not her property dispute. Evan sat across from me, Laura beside him. Evelyn entered with 2 sets of documents and closed the door. I want to be very clear before anybody signs anything. She looked first at Evan and Laura. You presently hold record title because George conveyed his remaining interests to you. They nodded. This deed conveys all of that title back to George. Yes, Laura said. Evan said, yes. No retained interest for either of you. Yes. No side agreement. Yes. No occupancy permission. Evan looked at me, then said, no. Evelyn continued. No lien, no consideration owed by George. No agreement to sell, no agreement regarding future inheritance. Yes. I noticed she had learned our family quickly. Then she looked at me. Once this is recorded, you will again hold full title in fee simple. In English, you own the house. Better, Laura signed first. No hesitation. Evan signed second. He read every page. I noticed that. Maybe he wanted me to notice. I did not comment. The notary watched both of them sign. Then Evelyn slid the deed toward me. You do not actually need to sign the deed as grantee. I know, but I have a separate acknowledgement for your file stating you accept the reconveyance. I read it. Every line. Evan watched. I wondered if he remembered the yellow tabs in my kitchen. I signed. Evelyn gathered the papers. I'll submit this for electronic recording today. I'll send everyone the recorded copy once Chesterfield County returns it. Evan breathed out. Laura leaned back. Nothing dramatic happened. Nobody applauded. The building did not shake. Paper fixed paper. It did not fix the reason the first paper existed. I opened my folder. Evan noticed. Dad, I'm not suing you. His face changed. I didn't ask. You were thinking it. I was wondering. I'm not. Laura looked at me. Are you sure? No. That made Evelyn smile slightly. But I am not filing anything today. I put Rebecca's printed messages on the table, then Ray's description of the locksmith conversation, then Mercer's file note about financing or selling after removal of the life estate. I want one thing before we leave. Evelyn leaned back. This sounds like a family conversation. It is. I looked at Evan. I want Laura to hear the whole sequence from you. He stared at me. She knows? No, she knows pieces. Laura said nothing. I continued. When did you first decide removing my life estate could help the company? Evan rubbed his hands together. Early May. When did you contact Mercer? May 8th. Had you already spoken with Piedmont? Yes. About the house? About needing more collateral. Had they identified my property? No. So you brought it into the conversation? Yes. Laura looked at him. That was new to her. When? After Mercer told me removing the life estate would make title easier to finance or sell, I asked. Did you tell Mercer I had agreed to that purpose? No. Did you tell me that purpose? No. Why? Evan looked at the table. Because I thought you'd refuse. Laura closed her eyes. I kept my voice even. Did you believe I lacked the ability to understand the deed? No. Did you believe I was confused? No. Did you believe I was legally incapable of making the decision? No. What did you believe? That you would say no. There it was, in front of everybody. No interpretation required. Laura looked at him. You told me Dad knew. I told you he signed. You made those sound like the same thing. I know. He did not defend it. I asked one more question. When did you decide to change the locks? 2 days before. Before or after I told you I was going to the cemetery? His face tightened. After. Laura turned toward him. Evan continued before she could speak. I called Ray after Dad said he'd be out Saturday morning. And why then? Because I wanted uninterrupted access. For the appraisal preparation. Yes. For the realtor. Eventually. For repairs. Yes. For a house I had not agreed to sell. Yes. Evan's voice broke. Yes. That was enough. I gathered the papers. Laura asked, That's it? That's it. Evan looked confused. You don't want me to explain? No. His eyes lifted. Why? Because I understand. For the first time, He seemed to realize understanding was not the same as accepting. I said, "You did not misunderstand me." He looked down. "You understood I might say no." "Yes." "You understood your mother wanted the decision to remain mine." "Yes." "You understood Rebecca thought I should be told exactly what the deed did." "Yes." "You understood Laura had not agreed to use the property." "Yes." "And you went forward because you believed the result was good enough to justify getting ahead of my consent." "Yes." I nodded. "That is the truth I needed. Not that Evan was evil, not that he had secretly hated me, not that he wanted to throw an old man into the street and spend the proceeds on a boat. He had been scared about his company, about his employees, about me becoming smaller inside the house after Linda died. He saw a solution that seemed to improve everything, and because he was convinced the destination was still reasonable, he treated my consent like an obstacle in the route. That was the betrayal, simple enough to explain, serious enough not to minimize. Evelyn asked whether we wanted a few minutes alone. "No," I said. Then I looked at Evan. "One more thing." He waited. "You do not have a key to the house anymore." His face changed. "I gave the new keys. You gave me mine. Ray told me you kept copies for yourself." Evan went still. "I have one." "Give it to me." He reached into his pocket. A small brass key landed on the table. Laura looked at me. "What about mine?" "You can keep yours." Evan flinched. That hurt me. I let it. Not every consequence has to be equal to feel fair. "You think I'm going to come in without permission?" "No?" "Then why?" "Because access is trust." He looked at the key. "And I don't trust yours yet." He nodded. No argument. Evelyn slid the key toward me. I put it in my pocket. Outside, Laura went to her car. Evan and I remained beneath the maple tree. He said, "Piedmont finished the review?" I waited. "They're keeping the existing line. No increase? No? Can the company survive?" "Yes." The answer came cautiously. "What does yes mean?" "It means ugly for a while." I almost asked for numbers. Stopped. "You'll handle it?" "Yes." He looked at me. "I may have to cut hours." "I'm sorry." "So am I. That isn't my house's job to fix." "I know." "Good." Then Evan said, "Are you going to sell?" I almost laughed. He heard himself. "Sorry." I looked at the parking lot. I ordered an appraisal. His head lifted. "Why?" "Because I want to know what the house is worth." "For what?" "I haven't decided." That answer made him uncomfortable. Good. Then, surprisingly, he smiled. Small, tired, but real. Okay, I drove home. At 4:36, Evelyn emailed the recording confirmation. I opened the county site. There it was. George A. Keller, owner. No life estate, no remainder interest, no company address, no lender, just me. I printed the deed. Then I opened the front door with the new key. Inside, the house was exactly where I had left it. Linda's coat remained in the closet. The decaf remained in the pantry. The cardboard box of medical supplies was gone. Nothing had been solved by pretending I would never leave. Nothing had been solved by trying to make me leave sooner. I placed the recorded deed in the metal file box upstairs. Then I took Evan's spare key from my pocket. For a moment, I considered throwing it away. Instead, I put it in the desk drawer. Not returned. Not destroyed. Just unavailable to him. Trust, I was learning, did not always need a final verdict. Sometimes it needed a locked drawer and enough time for the next decision to become honest. For the first few weeks after the deed came back to me, I changed almost nothing. That surprised Evan. I think part of him expected me to celebrate by refusing every idea he had ever suggested. Keep the house forever. Ignore the repairs. Buy more decaf. Maybe have my name engraved over the front door. Instead, I scheduled the appraisal I had ordered myself. The appraiser arrived on a Tuesday morning. Her name was Denise Palmer. She asked whether anyone else needed to be present. No. She walked through every room, measured, photographed. Asked about the roof, HVAC system, windows, and kitchen remodel. I answered what I knew. When she'd reached the blue tape water stain near the guest room window, I almost laughed. What? My son marked that for me. Contractor? Yes. Is he right? Unfortunately. She wrote something down. Being wronged by Evan had not made his construction knowledge disappear. The report came 4 days later. Estimated market value, $7,000 and $12,000. More than I expected. less than Evan's most optimistic number. I printed the report and put it in the metal file box. Then I did nothing with it. That was the point. Information without urgency. A number without somebody already deciding what the number meant. In October, I went back to the retired inspector's lunch. Laura had been right. I had stopped starting things. The lunch was held at a barbecue place near the county offices, where half the menu required medication afterward. Mike Reynolds drove up from Williamsburg. You finally decided we're worth the gas? I'm evaluating. You look older. You look worse. That was enough to restore the relationship. 2 weeks later, a younger building inspector named Carlos asked whether I would spend one afternoon a month helping new hires review old case files. Not working, not signing anything, just explaining why certain failures were easy to miss when plans looked correct on paper. I said I would think about it, then caught myself. Actually, yes. Starting something felt strange. Good strange. At home, I began making changes too. Small ones. Linda's medication supplies were already gone. I donated most of her coats before Thanksgiving. I kept the tan jacket. No defensible reason. I simply wanted it. The decaf stayed until January, when I reached for the container and realized it had expired 4 months earlier. I threw it away. No ceremony, no breakthrough, just stale coffee. Evan did not ask about any of it. That mattered. His company survived. Not neatly. He and Rebecca sold the rental townhouse. One large client paid nearly $90,000 after Evan threatened to stop work. Another negotiated installments. Keller Renovation Group delayed 2 projects, reduced overtime, and lost one carpenter who found steadier hours with another contractor. Evan hated that. He told me so only after I asked how the man was doing. He left. I'm sorry. So am I. He did not say it was because of me. I did not say it was because of him. Businesses are usually damaged by more than one decision. By December, Piedmont restored normal access to the existing line, but declined the increase. Evan accepted it. No new lender, no family collateral, no discussion about my equity. He and Rebecca carried the consequences themselves. That was probably the most important thing he did after apologizing, not words. Absorbing the cost of his own decision without trying to turn my guilt into another asset. The house repair conversations changed too. Evan called before coming over. Every time, even if he was already on my street, the first few calls sounded ridiculous. Dad, I'm 6 minutes away. Can I stop by? You have been stopping by for 30 years. I know. Then stop by. A pause. Is that a yes? Yes. He was careful because access had become a wound. I was careful not to make him earn forgiveness by performing humiliation. One Saturday, he came over to replace the rotted exterior trim beneath the guest room window. I paid for the materials. He refused labor. I argued once, then let him refuse. We worked side by side. At one point, he reached toward my tool cabinet and stopped. Can I grab the pry bar? I stared at him. It's a pry bar. I'm asking. I almost told him he was being ridiculous. Then I understood. Yeah, he took it. Trust came back in moments that small, not completely, enough. In February, 7 months after Ray Morales told me to check the deed, I visited a 1-story development near Midlothian with Laura. Not because Evan suggested it. He did not even know. The houses were smaller, about 1,800 square feet, 2 bedrooms, a study, attached garage, tiny yard maintained by the homeowners association. I disliked the first one. The kitchen looked like somebody designed it for people who stored all their food and photographs. The second had no real garage workspace. Unacceptable. The third had a covered back patio overlooking a stand of trees. The garage was deep enough for my Buick, a workbench, and more tools than any retired man could justify. I stood there longer than I meant to. Laura noticed. You like it. I like the garage. You like the whole thing. Dangerous assumption. She smiled. Want me to call the agent? No. Okay. That was all she said. No push, no strategy, no family meeting. I went home and thought about it for 3 weeks. Then I called the agent myself. The house was still available. I made an offer. When I told Evan, he stared at me. You're moving? Possibly. You bought something? Possibly. Dad. The offer was accepted. His mouth opened, then closed. I enjoyed that more than I should have. When? Yesterday. Why didn't you tell me? Because I was deciding. He nodded. Fair enough. Then he asked, Are you sure? I looked at him. He heard it. Sorry. No, that one is allowed. He waited. Yes, I said. I'm sure. The decision felt completely different from the one Evan had tried to make around me. I was not leaving because Linda was gone. I was not leaving because Evan needed money. I was not leaving because the stairs had defeated me. I was leaving because I could picture something new, a smaller place, a workbench that had not belonged to the life I built with Linda, a patio where I could drink coffee without seeing the spot where her rose bushes used to be. Leaving did not prove staying had been wrong. It proved staying had finally done what I needed it to do. Give me enough time to choose leaving. Evelyn handled the sale paperwork for the old house. I insisted on that. The buyers were a couple in their late 30s with 2 children. The little boy immediately claimed Evan's old bedroom because it had the bigger closet. I did not correct him. At closing, the sale price was $721,500. After commissions, fees, and the ordinary costs of selling a house, the money went into accounts in my name. Not Evan's, not Laura's, not Keller Renovation Group's, mine. I bought the new place outright and kept the remainder invested. Then Evelyn and I updated my estate plan. Evan and Laura remained equal beneficiaries. That surprised Evan when I told him. You didn't change it? I changed plenty. I mean us. You're still my son. He looked down. That isn't the same as trusting me. No, he nodded. I know, I continued. The house will not belong to either of you while I'm alive. Good. I decide whether I sell, mortgage, paint, abandon, or fill it with ceramic frogs. Please don't do the last one. Your mother liked frogs. She liked 2 frogs. History is written by survivors. He laughed. That felt normal. Sophie helped me move, mostly by labeling boxes with descriptions I considered editorial. Grandpa's ancient cords, do not discard, or he will notice kitchen stuff. He claims he uses tools he loves more than us. Evan carried furniture. Laura organized the kitchen. Rebecca brought sandwiches. Nobody made the move into a verdict. That mattered too. At the end of the day, Ray Morales came to the new house. I had called him the week before. Need locks changed? Yes. Problem? No. He sounded disappointed. He installed new deadbolts on the front and garage entry doors. When he finished, he placed 4 keys on the counter. How many copies? I looked toward the living room. Laura had already gone home. Sophie was sitting on the floor, arguing with the router. Evan was in the garage adjusting my workbench, because apparently I had mounted it 3/16 of an inch too low. 4 is enough. Ray smiled slightly. Your deed okay this time? It is. I checked. That does sound like you. After he left, I put 1 key on my ring, 1 in the lockbox for emergencies. I gave Laura 1. Then I stood in the garage doorway holding the last 1. Evan saw it. Neither of us spoke. I held it out. He looked at me. You sure? Yes. He did not reach for it immediately. That mattered more than if he had. What are the rules? Same rules you used to have. Which were? You're my son. You can come by. He waited. And? I smiled. And if I'm at the cemetery, that does not mean you have a free afternoon for home improvement. He laughed. Then his face changed. I'm still sorry. I know. I mean about that morning. I know. He took the key. I did not tell him trust was restored. It wasn't a light switch. Some of it had returned. Some had changed permanently. That was probably healthier. A few weeks later, I drove back to the old neighborhood. Not because I missed the house enough to regret selling it. The Ramseys had received a package addressed to me. I picked it up and sat in the Buick for a minute across the street. The new owners had put a basketball hoop beside the driveway. Somebody had painted the front door dark green. Linda would have hated the color. I could hear exactly what she would have said. Then I realized I was smiling. The house was no longer mine. That was different from having it taken. I had chosen the buyer, chosen the price, chosen the day I packed Linda's tan jacket, chosen the new garage, chosen who received keys. That difference was everything. My son had believed he could combine grief, property, inheritance, and business pressure into one practical solution because he thought he knew where my life needed to go. He was even right about one part. I eventually did need something smaller, but being right about the destination never gave him the right to take over the road. If your child genuinely believed a major change would help you, could you rebuild trust after they took away your choice to make that decision for yourself? If stories about family, hidden motives, experience, and quiet justice stay with you, you're always welcome at the Watchful Father.